Me anything about politics. My name is Jarrett, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. So, if you got any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I do not judge, I do not roast, I do not debate. So, if you got any questions about politics, you don't have to worry about getting roasted or getting yelled at or anything of that nature. So throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics. Nobody's going to roast you or debate you or make fun of you for not knowing anything. Mr. Mon says, Gina something, Xavier era, done it all and ready, alert for local. All right, Mr. Mon. I mean, I guess I appreciate you calling attention to certain elections that are coming up. Welcome. What's up, Carmine? What's up, Vanity? Great to see you guys again. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jarrett Berenstein. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. Rabbi Goldbergstein says, Jarrett, what's the early life on you? I don't know what you mean by early life on you. Mr. Mon says, United, we are stronger. Thanks for informing. You're welcome, Mr. Mon. Yeah, Rabbi, what do you mean by early life? Tough shit. So Trump is taking away LGBTQ rights. I'm by. Is this something I should be worried about? Yes, this is definitely something that you should be worried about. Let me get into that in just a second. Rabbi says, Oy vey, just heard the last name. No needs. Are you leaving, Rabbi, because I'm Jewish? SLT says, what political topic do you want to talk about? I mean, anything. I mean, I'm just a little sleep deprived from having the baby. So, which political candidate's going to do more for me getting sleep with my baby? Gaiman says, local, state, national, or international, whatever you like. Thank you, 312MQ. So, tough shit. As you know, the bi person in the LGBTQ community, you're probably the least threatened of all of those people. People that are a little bit more under the radar are going to have an easier time with it. The changes that the Trump administration is making in regarding LGBTQ rights, they're a little more employment based. Like I believe they removed protections for LGBTQ people in the workplace. Like I think if you're a federal contractor, you can get fired for being gay now. Stuff like that. Walter Matheson just did a video about this. I don't remember all the things that he said there. But yeah, you should 100% be worried. But I don't know if it's something that's coming down the pike anytime soon. All right, Rabbi says, did you go to Grape Island too? Okay, so that's a block. See you, lady. Tony Perez says, you need sun, bro. Well, I have a baby, so. Okay, Mr. Mont says, August election, District 1, North Cali, activate, please. Spam Dylan says, did you vote for Trump? No. All right, welcome, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. So, any questions about politics, throw them in the chat, and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome. Jeff asked, boy or girl? My little baby is a girl, and rough weekend with her, which is why my eyes are so fucked up today. Okay, let's see here. This guy yaps too much, and then Mason says he's worse than Parker and Dylan LMFAO. All right, well, nobody's forcing you guys to be here. What's up, Mikhail Meme? If you guys want to just roast me in the chat, like I suppose that's fine. You're increasing the visibility of my live stream, and you're not going to hurt my feelings. I've been roasted by way better than you guys. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Jared Berenstein. Milo says, have you read Marx? I did when I was in college. That was a while ago. Welcome, everybody. Folkert says, I'm Dutch, by the way. Welcome. Guten Tag. I know that's not your language. I'm just being a silly Billy. Mason says, the more poly hats you, the better. They'll laugh at you. I don't know what that means. Milo says, what did you read by him? Manifesto, I think. Karma's Manifesto. Blake says, what does allowing 12 million illegals in 4 years do to the housing market? Wage growth. I don't know what COL is. But yeah, people that are undocumented coming into the country aren't buying up all the houses. They are not stagnating your wages. The thing that's actually doing that is billionaires and giant conglomerates, Blake. Let me know if you would like any more information on that. Drew says, bro, I'm a fan of France in World Cup and Euros. Can you pick me a club? No, I cannot. Duncan Crossbury says, why do you have such a nice beard and how do I grow one? I believe that's just genetics. I don't think that there's anything you can do about that. The Bad Wolf Bite says, can you define capitalism? Sure. It's the free market. It's, money decides things. Yeah, Blake, immigrants are not raising your cost of living. It's monopolies and it's the billionaire class and it's right wing psychopaths being in charge of the government. Xander says, thoughts on the merge of the US and Israeli military? I'm against it, but it's also not exactly what it is. Like the bill that that the Republicans are trying to pass right now, it's not about merging the militaries. It's about kind of like streamlining, getting intel and new technology and new weapons and bullets and shit into the hands of the Israeli army. So kind of like eliminating America as a middleman in their market. Okay, Carmine says DEI question mark. I'm for it. Plant Daddy mixes. What's the pros and cons of ranked choice voting? I guess the only con would be that it's not a perfect system. Like you can still get bad politicians. Like Eric Adams was elected using ranked choice voting, so it's not a cure all. The pros is that it would basically get rid of spoiler candidates because if you can vote for both the candidates that you like and order them how you like them, then you don't have to worry about, I want to vote for Bernie Sanders, but I think Hillary's a better chance of winning, kind of shit like that. The Bad Wolf Bite says, profit is the surplus labor value extracted from workers. Okay, that's not a question. Mutter says, thoughts on Hassan LARPing as a Chinese dictator? Kind of poor taste. I kind of see what he's trying to do. He's trying to rage bait the Democratic centrists, I think. Okay, what's up, Mel? Good to see you again. Carmine says that was the second part of my nonsensical question. What was the first part of your nonsensical question? Clean Fresh Edit says, can Kamala Harris beat Vance? Yes. Carmine says, how come we have people mooching off the government and simultaneously getting all the jobs because DEI? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Oh, right. D says, top 5 policies leading to today's political frustrations. Let's see here. Poor campaign finance regulations, no Supreme Court ethics, partisan gerrymandering, electoral college, and monopolization of information environments. Thanks for your question, D. Okay, Ecuadorian, good to see you again. I just woke up. I would love to say the same thing. All right. Yasin says, do you believe in Adolf? I mean, I didn't like him, but I definitely believe he existed. Sasha says, you didn't answer the question he asked about DEI. So he was being silly. He was saying that, that people blame immigrants for everything, even though they don't make any sense. Like you can't both be lazy and stealing all the jobs. All right. All right. Space Cat says, your thoughts on corporatism? I'm against it. Clean Fresh Edit says ranked choice voting benefits the establishment that are seen as safe fallback candidates. I mean, I think that not having ranked choice voting is better for establishment candidates. Because then without ranked choice voting, people would automatically just vote for the safe fallback candidate. But with ranked choice voting, you can vote for the person that you really like, but then also then vote for the person that you think is safe just in case the person that you like doesn't win, to keep, the really bad person out of it. Master Liberty, good to see you again. Mutter says, is it true that communists were in Napoleon's time were Jewish or not? I mean, communists have been everything. They have been Jewish, they have been Christian, they have been Muslim. Gaiman says, when is the US switching to the metric system? No time soon. Just here 2 comments. Says, thoughts on flock cameras? I'm against them. Drew says, why are you ignoring me? Because I didn't see your question. Drew says, what are your thoughts on the Turkish-Kurdish war? I have no thoughts about that. I don't know anything about that war that is happening. Okay, 7-2. Good to see you. Hello, back to you. Okay, okay, okay. Spadecat says corporatism isn't about corporations. Okay, well then enlighten us. Gab Agul guy says the Zionist U.S. I don't know. That's not a question. Period says, how do you feel about the Zoran the Moron mayor of New York? I mean, Zoran Mamdani is doing an amazing job. I don't know where you're getting your information from, but yeah, childish insults aside, I don't really see a lot to criticize in how amazing of a job Zoran is doing in New York. Mikhail says, how was Biden good even though he was too old? Some people have suggested that he just put in basically his administration was doing the work of being president, and they were doing a good job. Yart next door says thoughts on Trump's first versus second terms. It's worse now because not only does he have a compliant Republican Party and a compliant administration, but he also has a compliant Supreme Court, which are things that were missing from his first term. Mel says thoughts on the White House Correspondents' Awards clown show. Did not watch. Did not care. Seemed like kind of Trump rambling more like he likes to do. So yeah, not too pressed about it. Muzz, Vanity, and Aaron, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Roswell says, are Zionists using vaccines to sterilize Goyim? No, none of that is true. Okay, Gaiman says, why are southern states so economically stronger than California or New York? They're typically not. Red states are typically not as economically strong as blue states. And I believe that California is like the sixth largest economy in the world if it was its own country. So yeah, you're not going to convince me that southern states are doing better economically than the sixth largest economy in the globe. All right, that dude says, if AOC became president, would the USA ever recover? I mean, I think AOC would be a really good president, that dude. John Scarp says, thoughts on Kamala versus Rubio 2028? Kamala's not my first pick, but I think she'd be a way better president than Marco Rubio. The dude's a psychopath warmonger. All right, Drew says, thoughts on Trump being number in the polls? Can you clean up that question, Drew? Let's see here. Tennis Four Style says, who's going to be the Dem Republican candidate for the next presidential election? Nobody knows. Nobody's even declared that they're running yet. That dude says, LOL, I'm out. You're clueless. Cool. Thanks for being here. Texas Cotton says, that's wild. What's wild? Mr. Yuli Fix says, rubber stamp for one change in the U.S. What would it be? Money out of politics. All right. Clean Fresh Edit says, southern states like Georgia, Texas, Florida, North Carolina are doing very well economically. I'm sure they are. Sanchez says, if everything is free, who would pay for it? I guess nobody would have to pay for it because it's free. Space Guy says corporatism wants to stop fights between social classes by making workers and bosses cooperate. I mean, I suppose I like that in the theoretical. Okay, Master Liberty says, I would ask you a proper question, but I don't want to hurt your head or waste your time. No, you're good, man. Ask away. I'm getting a lot of trolls over on TikTok, so can't wait for a substantive question. John Abbott says, are you a pro Bodega Cat or anti Bodega Cat? I'm pro. They are a New York staple. Mel says, they say DNC broke, problem for us Democrats in November. So I believe the issue there is in the DNC being able to assist in other campaigns. I believe that the campaigns are basically funding themselves, but if we wanted the DNC to be able to help, they are unable to because they're a little bit out of money at the moment. I think you need definitely double check that, but that's how I understand it at the moment. Drew, I am blocking you because you're spamming the comments. All right, Vanity, Muzz King, and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Michaela Meme says, dogs or cats? I think they're both great. I grew up with dogs, though, and I'm allergic to cats, so they kind of get my votes. What do you call it? Anyways, AB says, do you believe Palestine is a country? Yes. Tough Shit says, why did Trump call LeBron racist? Because Trump is a child who throws around words as though they have zero meaning. JD Henry says, do you agree with DSA agenda of abolishing the Senate and presidency? I don't know if the DSA is advocating for abolishing the presidency, but I am completely open to the argument that we should get rid of the Senate. The Senate is a wildly unbalanced institution. The fact that California and Idaho have the same number of senators is completely bonkers when California has something like 10x or 50x the population of Idaho. No shade to Idaho, but yeah, it's bananas. Getting rid of the Senate also means getting rid of the filibuster, which is like a big way of that people stop progress from happening. So yeah, I'd be down for that. It's not like top of my issues list, but I'm definitely down for that. The Lazy Philosopher says, why is Uncle Sam going around the world preaching democracy when it is not a democracy itself? I mean, America still is a democracy. It is true that the Trump administration, the Republican Party, and the Supreme Court are trying to weaken the American democracy, are trying to make it into more of a entrenched minority rule fascist dictatorship, but it is still a democracy. Like, Democratic politicians have been fucking running the table in all these special elections in the past couple of years. So yeah, it definitely still is a democracy. It could be a better democracy, but it won't be until we get all of the Republicans out of government. Okay, what's up? Lil says, Jarrett, shut the fuck up. No, it's way easier for you just to leave than for me to just cancel, stop doing my show. Clean Fresh Edit says, should Gretchen Whitmer be primaried for endorsing Haley Stevens? Yeah, sure. Brand New Geezy says, no military, no border, no prisons. Hold on a second. Brand New Geezy. Who are you talking about that believes that there should be no um, military and no border, no prison? Should men be able to compete against women? Yeah, why not? I'm really bad at sports, so I'm sure that there's some women out there who are like really, really good at or like at my level, who I'd be great to compete with. Brand New Geezy, I do not believe that the DSA is saying that we should abolish the military and prisons and the border. Ito says, do you believe Israel is a country? I mean, it is, the same way that Palestine's a country, and Russia and China and North Korea. Mr. Yuli says, are you liberal, leftist, or other? I consider myself a leftist. I call myself a progressive Democrat. Okay, Michael Blount says, even if Biden was reallocating responsibility, it worked. What kind of government is that? I don't really know what you're asking. Like, is that like a different definition? Like, are you saying it's not a democracy, it's not a republic anymore? Yeah, I'm not saying it's a good thing. Like, if we elect the president should be the president. We can't just like, elect somebody to be president and then they just go sit in a chair and let somebody else do that job. But they still did a really good work. That administration was fucking goat. All right, El Mujahideen says, you're Jewish. Why would I ask you? Because Jewish people can know things and have expertise in things. Brain Noogie says, watch Megan Romer interview on Fox. She's co-chair of the DSA. Honestly, Brain Noogie, I don't really care. Like, I don't know who Megan is. I'm sure there are some things in DSA that I agree with, some things I don't agree with. But the fact of the matter is, like, DSA candidates are doing a lot better these days. If you are a sort of marginally aligned DSA candidate like Mamdani, AOC, Bernie Sanders, James Tallarico, Ossoff, Shapiro, etc. People like you. People like you more than non. Okay, Brand New Geezy says she's saying no military prisons. No military prisons. No military or no military and no prisons. Let me know. Okay, Master Liberty says, how do you think the Supreme Court should be fixed in the judicial doctrine it has said is contrary to the Constitution's explicit text? I think a enforceable code of ethics. They shouldn't be able to pick their cases, expand the Supreme Court, add another layer of judiciary in between the Supreme Court and I believe the Court of Appeals is the second highest one. I can't remember. Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert in that, but that's just kind of like half of what I remember from listening to the Strict Scrutiny podcast. Okay, Average Joe says the existence of the Senate was suggested as a compromise to get smaller states to agree to sign the Constitution after Articles of Federation were shown to have many issues that needed addressing. Interesting context. Thank you very much, Average Joe, for being here. Okay, Brain New Geezy again. I don't care. Dr. Bush says, can you tell me what has AOC, Sanders, and any socialist politicians done to make anything better? So it's difficult question to answer when you are talking about a shared responsibility style government, Dr. Bush. So do we want to give AOC and Sanders credit for good things that happened during the Biden administration? Like, they voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, which brought inflation down and was a massive investment in renewable technology and was revitalizing small towns. But do they deserve all the credit for that, or were they just one of a whole bunch of Democratic politicians in a Democratic administration that was passing legislation? I think that AOC and Sanders are advocating for the correct policies, and so in a world where it is difficult to assign either credit or blame to specific people in either the Senate or the House. Where president, it's a little bit easier because they have a little bit more of a established, actions leading to consequences kind of shit. But yeah, hope that answers your question. All right. Black Heart says, what are your thoughts on the merging of the U.S. and Israeli military? So the bill that is currently being debated is not exactly that. It is kind of like streamlining military support for the IDF. And I'm against it, but it's not merging the American military and the Israeli military. All right. WTF says, you're in California, right? Yes. Sadie says, do you support Trump or Harris? What a weird question for 2026. Don says, how are persons with dual citizenship not foreign actors? They literally split loyalties. That's not the law, though, Don. Like, you're allowed to have two citizenships right now, so you're not a foreign actor. That's just not what the law is. Malik says, why do Christian nationalists compare themselves to other religious groups if they proud of themselves? Can you clean up that question, Malik? I don't really know what that means. Thank you, MLA. Appreciate that. Clean Fresh Edit says, what is an electable position in purple states for Dems on trans athletes? It's a really good question, Clean Fresh Edits. I'm not really sure what the centrist position is in regards to that. I think probably the best way you can go is to let people know that you do not believe in kind of like a carte blanche, you know, and anybody should be able to compete in the women's league, and recognizing the issue that some people have with it. Like, obviously, if my daughter was, in a sports league and she was just getting fucking annihilated by somebody and everybody was getting annihilated, but I'd be pissed too, like, obviously. But I think that we need to recognize that this is not the issue facing the United States today. That's probably what I would say if I was like the centrist. I would just be like, I think that local municipalities can handle this. It's such a small problem. It affects like 12 people basically in the entire country. And I would then try to like make it clear to people that this is an issue the Republican Party is using to keep you from getting health care, to keep you from getting affordable college for your children, to keep you from being able to send your kids to school without worrying that they're going to get shot in a mass shooting event. The Republican Party is bringing up trans athletes and men in women's bathrooms because they don't give a shit about you being able to afford a home or being able to afford to put gas in your car. That's what I would do. I would think. Okay, tough shit says centrists are saying that Democrats don't care about poor people. What should I tell them? Tough shit. It's difficult because if you pay attention to politics, the examples of the Democratic Party taking care of poor people, and also in comparison to the Republican Party taking care of them like way better than the Republican Party, like there are so many examples of that happening. If you're having a debate with somebody, if you're arguing with somebody about whether or not that's true, and they just don't get their news from the same place as you, they're just going to say that everything that you said is fake. So what I would say is, there are a bunch of examples of this. There is Joe Biden was the first president to walk a picket line. There was the Biden administration negotiated paid sick days for the rail workers union. There was the Biden National Labor Relations Board was siding with the unions for the first time in a generation. That the Biden Federal Trade Commission was breaking up monopolies and bringing down costs. That the Biden administration brought down healthcare costs. The Biden administration was revitalizing small towns with safe, good paying, clean energy jobs. The Affordable Care Act made it impossible for insurance companies to reject medical care because of pre-existing conditions. Like, all of these are things that were accomplished by Democratic administrations that made life easier for poor people, working class people, the middle class, etc. So yeah, and then I would be like, does that not count? Is that not good enough for you? Did you not know that these things existed? And there's also like a lot of other examples as well. That's just like off the top of my head. Jeeper says, why does Trump constantly lie? Because he has no good. The reality doesn't help him, so he has to lie. Clean Fresh Edit says, would you ever refuse to vote for a Dem in the general if they are bad enough? No, because even the worst Democrat will still give power to the good Democrats that are also in the government. Vanity, WTF, Muzzking, Aaron, and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. Panzer says, why did the USA change their view about the RSF in Sudan? I am so sorry, but I do not know nearly enough about that to opine on it. My bad. But the good news is that it's finger hearts o'clock, everybody. All right, Malik says, has President Trump committed treason against himself for doing the heinous things he's done in office? I think you could easily make an argument that Donald Trump is guilty of treason. I don't know if I'm prepared to make that argument right now, but it's definitely an argument that one could make, and I believe I would be easy to convince. All right. Platinum Soul says, "Hello, bro. If you don't have a topic, what do you think about Argentina trying to claim the Falkland Islands from Britain?" I'm not really in the nitty gritty of that issue. I am uh, sympathetic to countries that had their land taken in previous empires wanting that land and or territory back. So, I am open to Argentina's position on this, though I'm sure that there are a bunch of specifics that might complicate the issue. All right, John Abbott says, within a week of SCOTUS ruling against trans athletes, Heritage Foundation started publishing articles about ending women's sports entirely. So none of it was ever about protecting women's sports. Ooh, that is a really good thing to bring up, John Abbott, when people are talking about the trans sports issues. What is up, MC Sivo? Fog of War, great to see you again. Since people of Falklands vote overwhelmingly to stay part of the UK. Well, I guess that's the end of that question. WTF says, how's the baby and your wife? They are doing great. How has having your first child changed your motivation? I'm just more tired now. Like there are still so many things I want to do, but I just don't have time or energy for it anymore. K Rob says, what's your motivation behind what you do? Don't you get sometimes overwhelmed by the injustice? Oh, 100% I get overwhelmed by the injustice, but that's the thing that makes me want to do this all the more. Because whether it is accurate or not, I believe that me doing this show is putting the correct information out there to people who need to hear it. And so even if I'm just changing one vote, I do not mind dedicating, dozens and dozens of hours to making sure that that happens. So yeah, so I see the injustice, I get upset about it, I come over here and I do the catharsis of getting to talk about it, but also, you know, I suspect I have an inkling that maybe this might be helping just a little bit. Okay, Sadese Insan says it is better to ask that who live at USA like you, is capitalism so hard or merciless? Yes, capitalism is merciless. If you're gonna have capitalism, it's got to be regulated and balanced out with some communism and socialism. Katie US says, let me join. The answer to that question, Katie, is always maybe. If you're lucky, I will bring you up. I'm mercurial about it. I just do it whenever I feel like it. There's no set rule for when I allow people up. All right, I'm Sebastian. Oh, hey, Sebastian, change your name. I thought I recognized that. Thank you, Kanye. I appreciate that. C. Flan says, this dude has almost completely swayed me. Who, me? What am I missing, C. Flan? Where is the where is the gray area that I've not been able to convince you on, C. Flan, yet? Ito says, are you a socialist? I'm not a socialist, but I'm also not a communist or a capitalist. I believe in a mixed model. Okay. Hassan says, what are your thoughts on racism? I'm against it. Fascism, I'm against it. Alan says, why you banned my sentence? I didn't ban your sentence. Jero is just saying MAGA over and over again, so that's a block. On a Smile and a Shoestring says, do you agree that almost all of the issues that the USA faces is because of its two-party structure? No. In fact, I would say that almost all of the issues that the USA faces is because of billionaires in the Republican Party. The two-party structure has its flaws, but I do not believe that it is responsible for almost all of the issues or even some of the issues. I think it's a small percentage of the issues. Carmine says, gray area should be the name of your next podcast. I'm down for that. All right. Mai says, thoughts on Georgism land value tax. So know enough about it. WGF says, this is my new account too, was banned in a live on this very subject, our government theft. Did this show ban you? IDF asks, are you Jewish? Tech kinda. My dad was Jewish. My mom isn't. I don't celebrate. That, take that for however you like. Alan says, why don't you answer mine? I've literally read everything I've seen of yours, Alan. Kaiser says, do you believe in a regime change in Iran this year? Do I believe that the Irani government is a bad government that is bad to its people? Yes. Do I think that America should try to change that regime? No. Do I believe that the regime will change anytime soon? No. And that last no is largely due to mistakes that the Trump administration made in their Iran policy. Like, it is pretty fucking bananas that, there was an Ayatollah that was about to fucking regime change himself because he was so fucking old. We murder that guy. Now his younger, more extreme son is in charge. all at the exact same time as there were a record number of civilian protests in every demographic, not just the young, cool, college educated people, but the farmers also, the people that are generally more religious and conservative, we're rising up against the regime. And then the Trump administration swooped in and was like, "Don't be mad at your government. Be mad at America." What a fucking dope move. That's some fucking three-dimensional chess right there. Grostov says, "What do you mean capitalism needs to be balanced out with some communism?" Yeah, I'm a true liberal, but I've always just been completely unconvinced by the Marxist communist types. All right, Krostov, I am down with this. Let me get into that, but there's a couple of questions in here that I wanted to get to real quick, but I will get to that one. Okay, let's see here. Steve says, "Still feel like both parties pick some bad candidates." I completely agree with that, Steve. Couple of things that I would point out. Number one, the parties don't pick the candidates. The primary voters pick the candidates. It is true that some of the establishment figures will like try to convince other people to run and try to clear the field so that like other people don't run when their preferred candidate is going to run. But the voters are ultimately the ones that choose who the candidates are going to be. Now, that being said, my personal philosophy, and I believe it's the correct philosophy, is that you only vote based on who the candidate is in the primary. And that when you get to the general election, what you're voting on is the platform of the political party that you want to be in power. Like, I don't really care about the specific Democratic House member that I am going to be sending to Washington or the specific Democratic senator that I'm going to be sending to Washington. But if I vote for a Democratic senator or a Democratic House member, I know that that is a vote that is much more likely to go for policies that I feel strongly about, like doing something about climate change, doing something about income inequality, doing something about gun violence, doing something about moving us towards universal health care, free public college, bringing down the cost of housing, et cetera, taxing the wealthy, using that money to help out everybody else. Like those are the positions that I can guarantee any Democrat that gets elected is going to be forwarding and is going to be a check against the Republicans who are going to be doing the opposite of what they want, of what I want to be happening, in addition to like the gross abuses of power and criminality that the Republican Party is allowing to happen. Like any Democrat is going to be a message to the Republican Party. Like, you guys have been asleep at the wheel. You have been allowing this massive amount of corruption and criminality to occur. Ergo, you do not get to keep your job. Let me know what you think about that argument, Cflon. Alrighty. So, Krostov, the reason why I say to balance out capitalism with some communism and some socialism is based on a kind of like loose definition of those economic philosophies that I like to use. I feel like it's very clarifying to use my definitions, where other people will argue that that's not actually how you define those words, but here's how I do it. Socialism is things like universal health care, where we give the government our tax dollars. They use that money to give us health care that we don't have to worry about insurance companies or pre-authorizations or referrals or having to go through the middleman or spend all. It's a lot more expensive to use private insurance also. So it's just like better in that sense. And in that sense, we're using socialism to kind of like balance out capitalism, because capitalism tried to do healthcare. It has failed. It has failed. It is failing. It will continue to fail. Ergo, the government needs to do a socialism version of healthcare instead. Where communism, I define it as like anything that pushes more value of profits and productivity to the working class. So encouraging companies to be employee owned, making it illegal for CEOs to earn more than 50 times their lowest paid employee. Lowest paid employees need to have a voice on the board of directors, breaking up monopolies, strengthening unions, shit like that. So yeah, that's where I think that communism kind of like balances out capitalism. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Ellipses says, "What's up? What's up back?" Riddick says, "What is the likelihood of a ground invasion in Iran?" Ooh, that is a really good question, Riddick. So nobody really knows, not only because nobody can really predict what's going to happen in the future, but also because Donald Trump is a psychopath with the attention span of a goldfish and a child's idea of what military and state strategy should look like. I do not see Trump starting a ground invasion before the midterms. I think that he would view that as being politically damaging. I think that if he was going to do a ground invasion, he would do it after the midterms. because he does not like the hole that he has dug for himself, where he is not going to get a deal that is as good as Obama's nuclear deal with Iran, because Iran has a lot more leverage now by closing the Strait of Hormuz and things like that. But also, he will not accept, because he is in a narcissist who is has this racist belief that every white person is automatically better than every black person. He believes that he should be able to get a better deal than Obama got, just by virtue of the fact that he's white and Obama was black. So he cannot accept any deal that is worse than what Obama got. And the Iranians are not going to give him a deal that is as good as what Obama got, because Iran is much stronger right now. So he doesn't like where he's the place that where he is, and his only option then is to escalate things militarily, and he believes that that's going to win him this war. But it's also extremely politically unpopular to do that right now. So potentially, what we're looking at is just more and more bombing campaigns until the midterms, and then maybe a ground invasion. Okay, Alan says, is the best option for Cuba that USA made a military intervention against the dictatorship? I don't believe so. But very good question, Alan. Yeah, the America's history of intervening in regimes to try to, bring a better government to the people of those countries, we have a very bad track record with that. What works a lot better is if we can get the citizens to replace their own government. And there are a lot of much safer, smarter, cooler ways that we can do that without wasting human lives and spending all of our healthcare money on bullets and shit like that. Tutku says, are you a Republican or a Democrat? I'm a Democrat. All right. Crosstuff says, Pakistan intelligence reporting seeing some groundwork for U.S. invasion off the Hormuz coast. Wouldn't put a lot of stock into it, but keeping an eye on it. Again, that was just me pontificating. Political predictions are completely worthless. I would be pretty shocked if there was a ground invasion before the midterms. But, you can't put anything past a fucking psychopath. Okay, Katie Jess says, Trump handed Iran the Strait of Hormuz. Now they will charge him to pass and decide who does or does not. That is accurate, Katie. Alan says, but almost 7 years of dictatorship, the citizens can't do anything. Alan, I gotta disagree with you there. I don't believe that America's policy towards Cuba has been empowering the Cuban people to take their lives back from the authoritarian government that has been doing human rights violations against them. The Obama administration normalized relations with Cuba, where we could trade with them again and we could travel there. That would have done more to actually bring about safe, long-lasting regime change in Cuba than anything that America has done before or since. Think about the effect of Americans going to Cuba and talking to Cubans about the things that we are allowed to do, the rights that protect us versus the rights that don't protect them. And think about the effect that Cubans who have universal health care would have on us in America, Okay, Brutus says, be giving Iraq a butt and Ernie show was good with the Biden administration. Brutus, I don't think that is a sentence that I can comprehend. Tutku says, answer my questions. Would you go to a country without a passport, license, and your ID? I would not, Tutku. Is there a reason why you asked that question? Fog War says, in theory, Cuba should be one of our closest possible allies. That is accurate. Ito says, do you support the two-state solution in the Middle East? Yes. Okay. Alan says, but what will be the best option actually for Cuba then? Normalization, reopening trade and travel, empowering and educating the people of Cuba. Hazy says, your view on South African refugees. Are you talking about the exclusively white ones that Trump likes? I think that a lot of them have gone back to South Africa because they don't like it here in America. Risto says, traffickers and politicians like Juan Orlando Hernandez. I don't know who that is. Alan says, in Cuba, you have free healthcare, but they can't attend you because they don't have nothing. Well, they don't have nothing largely because we have cut off their access to all electricity. VR says, is it normal when a country has been sanctioned 40 years and it can resist like that? Yes, I suppose. The same thing is happening in North Korea. Scott says, if you lived in absolute poverty and feared for your life, yes, we all would. I think that is accurate. Tutku says, because a lot of immigrants coming to the USA without them, and Trump is against that. Yeah, but I'm not an immigrant. I am not seeking asylum, Tutku. I am a middle class human being who has a passport and a driver's license and all of my documentation. So that is not a great hypothetical because my situation is a lot different than the situation of somebody who might be fleeing cartel violence or civil war. Okay, CKCJ says, would you consider yourself a nationalist? No, I consider myself patriotic. Nationalism feels like my country's better than every other country. Gaiman says, will Social Security last a long time? If we tax the rich, then yeah. Real Benda says, thoughts on the shooting in Madison? I mean, I don't know too much about that specific shooting, Real Benda. I'm against all shootings, so yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it. Ido says, were you raised Jewish? No. I was actually raised Catholic. I was an altar boy. Tutku says, you said you are a Democrat. I am a Democrat. Turburglar says, what about fixing the USA? It's the most murderous country in history. Can you expand on that, Turburglar? Do you mean that we are doing the most murders in other countries, or we're doing the most murders in our country? Okay. Malik says, thoughts on Israel building drone bases in southern Iraq to strike Emirati and Saudi oil fields? So I don't know anything about that, Malik. I would be shocked if Israel started attacking the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, as what they're trying to establish a normal relationship with those countries right now. And Iran is specifically attacking those countries because they're trying to get them to be mad at Israel, and get mad at America for doing the war against Iran. So, yeah. Oy, 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 oy. Asa says, are you a good person? I like to think so. Ido says, what Malik said is a lie. Yeah, I thought it might be. Okay. Burr Fetty says, market manipulation, is it legal or illegal? Illegal. Okay, you don't answer the questions people ask you. Risto, I have 124 people watching just on TikTok, so I'm not going to get to everybody's comments. Pineapples asks, are you a communist? No, I believe in a mixed model, little communism, little socialism, little capitalism. Lola says, are you pro or anti-gun? I am personally anti-gun. But if you're asking me, are Democrats going to take everybody's gun away? The answer is no. Generic AU says, do you support Israel's genocide? No, I do not. Clean Fresh Edit says, AOC El Sayed in 2028. I think that would be a great ticket. I don't know if America, I don't know if the majority of America would agree with me, but I think that's a great ticket. Yanizavazu says, pro or against Israel? I am for the citizens. I'm against the government. Dop says, are you a big fan of the mighty Inter Milan fumble? I don't know what that is. Ori Dindan says, Trump is a dictator? Question mark. He's trying to be. He's acting like he has the powers of a dictator. I do not believe he's going to be successful in enacting the dictator moves. But let's see here. Skan Socioto says, so you're saying Israel's committing genocide. So let me be 100% clear about this. Israel, the government of Israel, is perpetuating a genocide on the people of Palestine. But that's not my opinion. That is the opinion of people who study this. Like, I did not look at a whole bunch of genocides and try to define what a genocide is myself, and then look at the evidence of what Israel did. I looked at objective organizations, some of which were located in Israel, and how they concluded that what their own government was doing was a genocide. So I guess I don't understand why we need to equivocate this when everybody that studies genocides is like, yeah, this is obviously a genocide. So, yeah, my personal opinion on whether Everest is the tallest mountain is inconsequential. It is the people that actually did the measuring of Everest and figured out it was the tallest. Okay, Malik says you guys are so blind. Malik, I gotta have to block you if you keep on not making questions. All right, Skon Siotu says, what the fuck are you talking about? Sounds like you just are not liking what you are hearing. Carmine says 9 out of 10 dentists agree that the experts affirm that it's affected G-side. That is accurate. Zoro says Rubio or Vance. They're both terrible. Average Joe says, by placing a self-imposed label on yourself, would you agree that it just makes it easier for people to automatically hate you without taking an opportunity to learn more about you? Yeah, I suppose so. Average Joe, and I don't know, like I understand. I get it. The worry that I have is that if I come on here and I go like I'm an independent, I don't really align with any political party. Number one, it's a lie. I'm a registered Democrat. I'm proud of being a registered Democrat. I am proud of a lot of the work that the Democratic Party has done over the past 50 years. I worry though that if that were not even the case, and if I came out here and said I'm an independent, but my views are the same as the Democrats, then I would get written off in a different way. I would get written off as this guy's parading around as an independent, but he's secretly a Democrat, kind of thing like that. Okay, K Ace asks, is Trump good? No, he's not. DSA says, is a hot dog a sandwich? No, it is not. Right. Jared says, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the guy who says talking my bad. That's okay, Malik, but just go back to asking questions. All right. Okay. Triska, WTF, Muzz King, Vanity, and Aaron. Thank you so much for helping me reach my first finger hurts goal of the day. All right, where's my finger hearts at? Here we go. Woo, boy. Okay. Generic AU asks, faith? Question mark. Can you be more specific? All right. Noel says, IJC and none of worthy organization claimed Israel is committing G-side, but okay. I mean, if you want, Noel, I will send you all of the organizations, including those located within Israel, who have concluded that it's a genocide. Ace, KA says, is Kamala good? Yes, Kamala is good. Generic AU says, denomination? I have no, I'm not, I don't practice any organized religion. Okay, classical JS Mill says, don't both hypothetical Democratic and Republican administrations have trade-offs easy to scrutinize? Sure, classical. I suppose that is accurate, but I do think that there is a difference in degree and scale. I believe that the sins of the Republican Party are so much worse than the sins of the Democratic Party that it's not even worth comparing the two. It's like comparing jaywalking to decapitation. Like one of those is a way worse crime than the other. If you are judging the Democratic Party on a scale, they are essentially flawless because the Republican Party is that bad. Alrighty. Average Joe says independent is labeled too. LOL. I mean, ask me about my position on a policy. Would you consider that to be a better tactic to encourage good faith conversations? Yeah, potentially, Average Joe. But I still think that has the potential to label me then as a secret, insidious Democrat, even if I'm not labeling myself as an independent or non-party affiliate or whatever than that. And also, like part of what I'm doing on here is trying to call attention to the issue of the way that our culture is unfair to the Democratic Party, where we keep on raising the bar for the Democrats and lowering it for Republicans. Democrats can never be good enough to justify voting for them. Republicans can never be bad enough to justify voting against them. Democrats never get any credit for the good things they do. Republicans never get any blame for the bad things that they do. I mean, Katrina, 9/11, financial crashes, the first Trump administration, COVID. It's just like the list goes on, and yet people keep on voting for them as though there's some sort of equality of badness between the two of them. All right, KA says, which U.S. state is the best to live in? I don't know which one is the best, but the blue states generally have a higher quality of life. Noel says, so what are the names of these international organizations? I don't have them memorized, Noel, but if you send me a DM, I will send them all to you. Sconcio says, why is your mod anti-Semitic? I do not believe that my mods are anti-Semitic. BR Fetty says, is that even possible? Could Israel keep the territory it took in Lebanon and occupy it permanently? I suppose everything's possible, BR. I don't know. I believe that the territory that they took was sort of being operated by Hezbollah as opposed to like the larger Lebanon government. This is not my Arab expertise, so like don't quote me on this, but like if you have kind of like a wilds area where it's mainly factions of a terrorist organization are kind of like populating it, it would be a lot easier for Israel to justify keeping that territory. There's also like no real international pressure for them to give back all the territory that they annexed from Palestine. So I don't really see like a huge difference in, there being no motivating factors for them, or any forces forcing them to do that. All right, JL Fetty says, who will be the main power in the next 50 years? Unless America gets its act together, China. Dorode Petrikov says, what happened to the Serbs in Kosovo in 2004? I have no idea. KA says, are you against Islam or immigrants? No. I am not against Islam because I'm not against any religion, and I'm not against immigrants because they are a net positive wherever they go. Additionally, there, but for the grace of God go I, meaning that any one of us has the potential to be an immigrant at some point in the future. What with global instability and climate change, nobody knows where is going to be safe to live going forward. Ergo, we all should be really fucking chill about immigration because we could be immigrants one day. Okay, Classical says scrutinizable trade-offs are usually highly visible, which just creates a loop of electoral changes. I don't know if I agree with that, Classical. Alrighty, loop of electoral changes. Spooky Mookie says, name one blue state that is functioning better today than it did a decade ago. I think all of them are Spooky Mookie. I don't know. That's not really a metric that I have studied. Like how are blue states doing now versus 10 years ago? The metric that I study is it better to live in blue states or is it better to live in red states? And every conceivable metric says that even now, even today, it is better to live in blue states. Ready. All right, Sebastian says thoughts on ATF control of weapons and guns in the USA. They're not doing a good enough job, but I guess we don't have the laws to give them to enforce, All right, BR Fetty says why China is giving military staff to Ukraine. I don't know if they are actually. Okay. RDN says do PC. I don't know what that means. Tough Shit says thoughts on Fox News. They are a right-wing propaganda organization. They have done studies. There have been studies done on Fox News, and if you are a regular Fox News viewer, you actually have worse knowledge of news than people who do not watch the news at all. So do not watch Fox News or any right-wing sources. Noel says, yes, for sure, California has become a zombie factory, but sure is better to live in blue states. What do you mean by a zombie factory? We're making zombies in California? Yeah. How would you like to decide this, Noel? Would you like to look at violent crime rates? Would you like to look at culture? Would you like to look at healthcare outcomes? Would you like to look at education outcomes? Would you like to look at average pay? Like lives in California are better than lives in red states. Like I'm happy to go into more details on this. RDN says, what are your thoughts about PC in the media? Do you mean like political correctness? That's not really a thing. It hasn't been a thing in a long time. Muhammad says, is Mamdani a good mayor? Yes. Jose G says, thoughts on California's $325 billion budget? I don't know anything about that specifically. What do you think, Jose? What do you think about it? Okay, Mike reads, of course we do. So they make it run right now. Dan Blackbird says, zombie rates per capita, the thriller index. That is so good, Dan Blackbird. God damn. Whoa, Dan Blackbird just popping in to fucking make fucking half court shots every now and again. Fucking hysterical, man. The thriller index. Okay. Sebastian says, are you for or against control of guns in general? I am for it. RDN says, why do people hate ICE? They're doing a great job. So RDN, are you aware of all of the atrocities that ICE has been committing since Trump took over in the second term, RDN? That is my question to you. Are you aware, RDN, that ICE is doing atrocities to American citizens and legal residents, in addition to people that are here illegally? Are you aware that atrocities are happening? RDN says, example, please. Okay. They have murdered a bunch of innocent civilians. If you look at all of the detentions that they have done that have made it to court, like 90% of them have been overturned because they were done illegally. If you look at the detention facilities, these people are not being given good potable food. They're giving maggot infested food. They're not getting their required medical care. it's like concentration camp shit. They got babies and toddlers in there without their parents, people who need cancer medication, and people who are getting infections and not getting any care in there. They're not detaining people legally. They're just rounding up any brown person that they see, as opposed to trying to figure out who is here illegally, who is here doing terrible, terrible, violent crimes. Let's grab them instead. RDN says one citizen that was deported. Abrego Garcia, he was a legal resident who was deported. RDN. Are you not aware of this, RDN, or are you specifically ignoring all of these issues? Okay, let's see here. Jose says California's collecting a ton of taxes from data centers corporations. California can do better a lower taxes. California has a progressive tax structure, Jose, where poor people pay less in taxes and rich people pay more. So I'm not going to advocate for lower taxes for people that live in California, because I believe the only place where we can lower them is for the rich. Okay, Clean Fresh Edit says, are you hopeful AOC can win the primary in 2028? I'm pretty sure she can. But again, I'm not really picking a dog in the progressive fight. I can only tell you who I am not going to be supporting in the primary. People like Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. But there are a lot of people who, if they were all running at the same time, I would have a difficult time picking. Like, I would have a difficult time picking between Chris Murphy and Andy Bashir and AOC. Okay, King of Libertarianism says, are libertarians tough? No. RDN says, not a citizen. Okay, well, what about the other atrocities that I mentioned? You're aware that it is a human rights violation to not give people medical care in detention. You are aware that it is a human rights violation to not give people potable food, to give people expired food that is covered in maggots. Are you not, RDN? RDN says, so what are you thought about the Jews? RDN, I don't like what you just did, RDN. I do not like you asking me a question about ICE, me answering your question, and then you moving on to a different topic. Because I'm asking you questions. I'm asking you, like, how come this stuff doesn't bother you? How come all of these atrocities that I'm mentioning, have they changed your mind about how good of a job ICE is doing, RDN? It doesn't seem like you're really here to learn anything or to engage. It seems like you have a specific agenda that you're trying to convince people of. You want to prove that this lefty person is wrong about things. RDN says, because you're talking BS. Well, you said taking BS, but I did not expect your spelling to be on point. All right, somebody with no screen name says, who's the best president in U.S. history? I have no idea. Jose Jesus says, the White House has joined. Oh boy, I'm going to be in trouble when they find out the shit I've been saying. It's Team Pat says, who won the Korean War? Korea. Kelly says, you. Oh, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. BR Fetty says, is it real taxpayers' money doesn't go to the government? Who said that, BR Fetty? I am unaware of any argument that is the case. Nick Cross says, what about Greco-Turkish conflict? Don't know anything about it. Matt Skelly says, so this guy is making assumptions now. Who's making assumptions? Who is? Am I? Is it me? Okay, Clean Fresh Edit says, but among the front runners, AOC, Buttigieg, Newsom, and Harris, AOC has your vote. Yeah, probably. I like Buttigieg. I like Harris. I like Newsom, but they're all three of them tend to be a little bit more centrist than I care for. So I would probably go for AOC. Yuri Nate says, you are Amish, Jewish, and Charlie Kirky. I am definitely not any of those things. Okay, Matt Skelly says, I made assumptions. What were my assumptions? Matt Skelly, let me know. Fog War says, did you watch the Hunter Biden Nick Fuentes interview? No. Two people I cannot stand talking to each other. Oh boy. Oh man. Somebody come take my baby so I can go watch that, Okay, let's see here. Lilith says, how do you feel about Brandon Gill? I don't know who Brandon Gill is. Clean Fresh Edit says, why can't you stand Hunter Biden? I have a lot of empathy for Hunter Biden, the same way that I have a lot of empathy for people with addiction issues. I do think that there's that even in his sobriety, he has been a kind of he's been a detriment on the culture. Like, he has behaved in ways that have hurt his father's presidency, his family, the agenda of the Democratic Party. I think he was instrumental in getting his dad to run for a second term, which I think was a really bad move on his part. So yeah, poor judgments, bad decisions. Um, yeah, there's just like a little taste of it. Foggle War says nightmare blunt rotation though for real. Victor says, "What would you do with BlackRock?" I guess I would regulate them out of existence. Hunter Biden, average Joe says Hunter Biden is a poster child for establishment nepotism and corruption. Not the biggest poster child, but one of the most recognizable. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. Classical asks, have you noticed that people who identify as centrist left are increasingly becoming performative? What do you mean by performative? Aptem. Yeah, let me know what you mean by performative, Aptem. I am curious about that. And if you're curious how you can support the show, there are a lot of ways that you can do that. You can like, you can share, you can tell your friends how great my live streams are. Matt Skelly says, so you're ignoring me again. No, I literally just asked you what were the assumptions that I made, and then I saw nothing. Then I saw nothing. I think your comments are getting blocked or something like that. Classical says performative, as in just performing to be centrist left, but actually not standing by their ideals. Do you mean like they're actually further to the right or they're actually further to the left? Classical. Mark Skelly says right below Victor's comment, don't lie. There's literally under Victor's comment, I see Mia, I see Aptem, and I see Classical. Sorry, Matt Skelly. It seems like your comment is getting blocked. Potentially, you are using some words or language that TikTok does not like. User a bunch of numbers asks, "Are you conservative?" No, I am not. Rabab, good to see you again. You can also send gifts. You can send gifts to the TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a subscriber. You can be a fan or a super fan of my TikTok. That stuff helps. Fan is like just you are informed of when I'm live streaming. Super fan is like more of I think it's like a subscription model. Like you pay for that kind of a thing. You can also be a subscriber on my Twitch channel. That would help me out a lot. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. Helps me out a ton. Costs you zero. You could also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. So there's a very fun incentive at $10 if you are into that sort of thing and have that kind of money to spare. Raphael Tufton says, what about libertarianism? I'm against libertarianism because it doesn't work and also because it is a fake political movement started by the billionaire class to try to dismantle the government so they can hunt us for sport. Alrighty. Nazar asks, what you think about Bandera? I don't know who Bandera is. Scott Clara says, Marge T. Green is a fan of Hunters. I shouldn't have read that. Clean Fresh says, did you vote for Bernie in 2016 and 2020? I did vote for him in 2016. I don't remember if we made it to New York in the primary in 2020. I was voting for Elizabeth Warren. It's likely that I voted for Elizabeth Warren. 0 star, stop spamming the comments, even though what you're saying is accurate. Classical says, no, not politically. It's about not standing by it IRL, like discriminating, but saying they're liberal. Yeah, I'm still not really sure what you're referring to. Can you give me a specific example, Classical? Because I am not seeing what you're seeing. I am not even aware of the argument for what you're seeing. So yeah, give me a little bit more details, and hopefully I can get into it with you. Let's see here. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So if you have any questions I wasn't able to answer on this live stream, you can hit me up any other day during the week from 11:30 a.m. Pacific time to around 12:30 a.m. Pacific time. Samson Radio says he's live right now on TikTok. Who's live right now on TikTok? Have you been tuning into Trump's talks as of late? Crazy shit. Trump's doing a TikTok live right now? That's fucking bananas. No, I don't like listening to him talk. He's infuriating. Let's see here. If there are any questions I was not able to get to, you can also DM me. You can email me through my website. Link is in the bio. You can hit me up via my Discord channel. Link is in the bio. And the Discord channel is great. There's recommendations there for a bunch of great stuff. And lastly, just I hope that you all do the work because it's only through us doing the work they'll be able to get out of this. Clean Fresh says, are Dem primaries too focused on Israel? I don't think so. I think that this is a very prescient issue right now that people are I think, rightly passionate about. Okay, Optem. I don't know who that is. Please stop spamming the comments with that. All right, everybody. I am particularly tired today, so I am gonna call it. Thank you again for all of your comments and your likes and your shares and your gifts and your engagement. I hope I was able to give you guys some good information today. So do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self care is part of the work, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.